Welcome to Whoyellingnow, Season 6, Episode 2, titled The Performance of Being Human. Copyright Mackenzie. Welcome in, my loyal listeners. I am Olga Foreign. Have you ever wondered which version of you people actually know? The one your father remembers? The one your mother still worries about? The one your husband, your wife, your children, your co-worker believe you are? Or the one standing here right now in this very moment? Perhaps none of them are wrong. Perhaps none of them are complete. Every person who meets us begins writing a story, not with a pen, not with a paper, but inside their mind. They collect evidence, the way you laugh, the way you speak, the clothes you wear, the stories you tell, the things you never mentioned. Little by little, they assemble a version of you. Sometimes they're remarkably accurate. Sometimes they're spectacularly wrong. Yet, they interact with that version as though it were unquestionably true. Then, one day, they discover something new, not because you changed, but because they learned something they didn't know before. Almost instantly, the relationship changes. Not always because it should. Sometimes simply because they believe it must. Today, I'd like to explore that idea. Not through psychology, not through science, but through one ordinary human being whose life changed twice. Once because of an accident, the second time because other people finally learned about it. Before we meet him, I'd like you to meet someone else, yourself. Not the version sitting in someone else's memory, the version sitting here right now. My dearest listeners, here is a poem I call On My Way to Being Me. On my way to being me, I grew exhausted, you see. Being me had become being the me you see. The me you liked. The me you expected. The me you knew. The me that made you comfortable. So, today, just for today, I'm going to be me. Don't despair. Tomorrow, I promise, I'll perform the me you deserve to see. I wonder how many people spend their lives walking towards themselves, only to discover everyone else keeps handing them a script. Today's story isn't about a hero. It isn't about tragedy. It isn't even about overcoming adversity. It's about something much quieter, something most of us have done without ever realizing it. let me introduce you to Mr. Hastings. It was supposed to be the beginning of the best 2 weeks of the year. Mr. Hastings had planned this vacation almost 12 months earlier. Not because it was extravagant, quite the opposite. It was simple. A cabin in the mountains, fresh air, long hikes, fishing with his boys, campfires after sunset, his wife reading while the children chased the family dog through the trees. No deadlines, no conference calls, no meetings, no schedules, just family. The boys had counted the days on the kitchen calendar. Every morning, another X. Every evening, one day closer. His wife had spent weeks making lists. Food, clothes, flashlight, fishing poles, sleeping bags, first aid kit. The things families always remember and the things they always forget. Mr. Hastings had only one responsibility: load the car. He liked that job. There was something satisfying about knowing that once the last suitcase disappeared into the trunk, vacation officially began. That morning, the house buzzed with excitement. One son couldn't find his favorite baseball cap. The other insisted they were leaving too late. The family dog, convinced this adventure existed entirely for his benefit, ran from one open car door to another, inspecting every piece of luggage. Mr. Hastings laughed. "Buddy," he said, "you've checked the cooler 3 times already." The dog ignored him, as dogs often do. Mr. Hastings picked up the final suitcase. Heavy, but manageable. He walked towards the back of the SUV. Nowadays, starting a vehicle requires almost no effort. Press a button, the engine comes alive. Changing from park requires only a gentle movement. Convenience. We have become remarkably good at making complicated things simple. No one knows exactly what happened. Perhaps an accidental touch. Perhaps the dog's curious paw. Perhaps an unnoticed movement. Whatever the cause, the vehicle slowly slipped out of park. There was no screeching tires, no dramatic music, no explosion worthy of a movie, only something almost ordinary. The SUV began to roll backwards. Mr. Hastings never saw it coming. The suitcase slipped from his hands. He turned just as thousands of pounds of steel closed the distance. His wife screamed. The boys froze. The dog barked wildly, running in frantic circles, unable to understand why everyone had suddenly become afraid. The vehicle rolled over both of Mr. Hastings' legs. Then, silence. Not true silence. The kind of silence families remember. The silence between panic and hope. Neighbors appeared. Someone dialed emergency service. Someone else comforted the boys. The wife knelt beside him, holding his hand, speaking words she could barely hear herself, saying, Stay with me. I'm here. Please, honey, stay with me. Vacation ended before it had begun. There are moments in life that quietly divides time forever. Before, after. Everything that followed belonged to after. The next several days would never exist in Mr. Hastings' memory as a complete story. Only fragments. Bright lights, hospital ceiling, voices speaking around him instead of to him, machines whose language he never wanted to learn. Every now and then, he would wake long enough to see his wife sitting beside him. Sometimes she was reading, sometimes praying, sometimes simply staring at him as if watching him breathe was enough. His boys visited. Their smiles tried very hard to be brave. Children have an incredible gift. They don't know how to pretend for very long. One afternoon, his youngest climbed onto the bed beside him. "Dad," he whispered, "when can we go camping?" Mr. Hastings smiled. I don't know, son." The boy nodded, accepting an answer most adults would have argued with. He leaned forward, hugged his father, and quietly climbed down. No speech, no tears, just love. Sometimes children remind us what adulthood has complicated. The doctors eventually came. There are conversations that every doctor hopes someone else has to have. This was one of them. We've done everything we could. The damage was too severe. There wasn't enough healthy tissue. We had to make a decision. We saved your life. Mr. Hastings listened. Not because he wanted to, because there was nothing else to do. People often speak of loss as though it arrives the moment something disappears. Sometimes loss arrives later. When the hospital room becomes quiet, when visitors go home, when the medication wears off, when reality finally asks you to introduce yourself. Rehabilitation began. Nobody applauded. There was no inspirational songs, no dramatic speeches, just repetition. Again, again, again. Stand, fall, stand, balance, breathe. Again, again, again. He learned muscles he had never noticed. He learned frustration can arrive before breakfast. He learned that pride can become heavier than any weight a therapist asked you to lift. Some mornings, he celebrated walking 20 feet. Other mornings, 20 feet felt impossible. Progress rarely introduces itself with celebration. Usually, it whispers. His wife became something remarkable, not because she never cried. She did. Not because she never became exhausted. She did. But because she somehow knew when to help and when to simply let him struggle. One evening, he dropped a glass reaching into a cabinet. It shattered across the kitchen floor. His first instinct was anger. Not at the glass, at himself. I can't even. He stopped. His wife looked at him, didn't rush, didn't comfort, didn't say, "It's okay." She simply handed him the broom. Then she smiled. "I figured you'd want to clean that up yourself." He stared at her, then laughed. The first real laugh since the accident. She hadn't treated him as broken. She had treated him as capable. There is a difference, a profound difference. Months passed. His body changed. His confidence returned, one careful step at a time. The prosthetics, which had once felt like a stranger, slowly became part of the rhythm of his day. There came a morning he tied his tie, stood before the bedroom mirror, and noticed something unusual. He wasn't looking at his missing leg. He was looking at himself. It wasn't acceptance. Some losses are never accepted. It was recognition. For the first time since the accident, the first person he saw was Mr. Hastings. Not the man who lost the leg, just Mr. Hastings. Several weeks later, an opportunity arrived, a management position. Different company, different building, different people, a fresh beginning. His wife found him reading the offer letter for what must have been the 10th time. "You've already accepted it, I know. So why keep reading it?" He smiled. "I'm making sure it still says yes." She laughed. "I don't think job offers change overnight, honey." "No," he replied quietly, "but people do." His first morning arrived. Navy blue suit, white shirt, blue tie, polished shoes. His wife adjusted his collar. "You ready?" He looked towards the front door, took a deep breath. "I think so." She kissed him. "No," she said, "I think they're ready." The receptionist greeted him warmly. Human resources welcomed him. His new office still smelled like fresh paint. One by one, his team introduced themselves. Different personalities, different backgrounds, different sense of humor. Some nervous, some confident, some skeptical of the new manager. Everything perfectly ordinary. Nobody asked about hospitals. Nobody asked about prosthetics. Nobody asked what happened. They asked where he had worked before, whether he liked coffee, whether he followed baseball, where he found such calm patience. They saw exactly what he chose to bring into the room. Weeks became months. His team began trusting him. He remembered names, birthdays, the name of spouses, children, pets. He rarely interrupted. When he didn't know something, he admitted it. When someone else deserved credit, he gave it. When mistakes happened, he corrected the problem without humiliating any person. People left his office feeling heard. Some managers build authority. Mr. Hastings built confidence. His staff starts saying things like, "I'll ask Mr. Hastings. He knows. He's fair. He'll actually listen." Respect arrived quietly, just as trust often does. Then, one Friday afternoon, something happened that no one noticed. Mr. Hastings drove home, finished dinner, laughed with his boys, and realized he had gone nearly an entire week without thinking about his leg. Somewhere without realizing it, he had become simply Mr. Hastings again. He slept well that night. Saturday would be family day. He had no idea that by sunset, everyone else's story about him was about to change. Saturday arrived exactly as Saturday should. No alarms, no meetings, no deadlines, just pancakes, cartoons, and two boys asking the same question every 15 minutes. "Dad, can we go now?" Mr. Hastings laughed. "We're leaving, Dad." "Are we leaving now?" His wife smiled over her coffee. "I think they believe if they ask often enough, time speeds up." I'm beginning to think so too, my love. The community pool wasn't far from home. By noon, the place was alive, children laughing, parents negotiating one more trip down the slide, teenagers pretending not to notice each other while noticing each other constantly. The smell of sunscreen, chlorine, and summer. His boys were already halfway to the water before he had finished carrying the towels. "Dad, race you," he laughed. "You know that's not fair." "Exactly." They disappeared into the shallow end, splashing each other before either had actually reached the water. Mr. Hastings sat down on a nearby bench, rolled up his pant leg, released the prosthetics, placed it neatly beside his towels. Something he had done hundreds of times. Something he had done hundreds of times before. Nothing dramatic, nothing symbolic, simply preparing to swim with his sons. He stood, balanced himself, and began walking towards the pool. Then he heard a familiar voice. "Mr. Hastings." He turned. Two members of his staff stood several yards away, both wearing expressions that hadn't quite decided what they were seeing. He smiled. "Well, I wasn't expecting to see anyone from work today." One of them smiled back. The other looked from Mr. Hastings to the prosthetics and back again. For just a moment, everyone became awkward. Not because anyone intended to, because surprise doesn't come with instructions. His boys interrupted the silence. "Dad, come on!" He laughed. "I'd better go before they fire me as their father." The coworker laughed politely. He waved, stepped into the water, and spent the next 2 hours being exactly who he had always been. A father, a husband, a man enjoying a Saturday afternoon. Eventually, everyone went home. Mr. Hastings thought very little about the encounter. He assumed They had simply learned something new about him. He never imagined how much work they would do with that information before Monday morning arrived. Monday morning felt wonderful. The weekend had been restful. The boys were still talking about who won the race. His wife kissed him goodbye. The coffee tastes unusually good. The company was beginning its largest project of the year. He genuinely looked forward to going to work. He parked, straightened his tie, picked up his briefcase, walked through the office front doors. Almost immediately, something felt different. Not wrong, just different. The receptionist smiled, but lingered. "Good morning, Mr. Hastings. Good morning." She hesitated. "How are you feeling today?" He smiled. "I'm feeling great." "That's good." There was a pause, long enough to notice, short enough to ignore. He continued towards his office. The morning meeting began normally. The room buzzed with conversation, jokes, weekend stories, baseball scores, children's soccer games. Today, everyone seemed slightly more careful. Not unhappy, careful. He presented a new project, explained the deadlines, assigned responsibilities. Everything proceeded exactly as planned. Except the room felt lighter on laughter. He couldn't explain why. After the meeting, he reached for a stack of project binders. A younger employee quickly stood up. "I've got those." Mr. Hastings smiles. "Thank you, but I've got them." "No, really, let me." It seemed kind. So he handed them over. 20 minutes later, he carried a printer from one office to another. Another employee hurried towards him. "Please, let me carry that." "It's all right, I insist." He laughed. "If you insist." By lunchtime, someone had opened 3 doors for him, pulled out a chair, asked twice if he was tired, asked once if he needed to sit down, asked whether the stairs were difficult. He answered every question politely. Every offer was generous. Every gesture came from kindness. Yet by the end of the day, he found himself strangely exhausted. Not because of the work, because everyone had quietly decided he now required different treatment. Tuesday, he walked towards the coffee room. Just before entering, he heard his name. "I never would have guessed." "I know. I heard it happen on a mountain." "No. Someone said it was a car accident." "I wonder how long ago." "I can't believe he never mentioned it." "I probably wouldn't either. I just feel terrible for him." Another voice joined in. "I think it's amazing." "What is?" "That he's so positive after everything." Mr. Hastings stood silently. Coffee suddenly seemed less important. He wasn't angry. He wasn't offended. He was curious. On Friday, none of these conversations existed. By Tuesday, his life had become office gossip, office discussions. He quietly turned around, walked back towards his office without his coffee. By Wednesday, the questions arrived, always beginning the same way. "If you don't mind me asking, what happened? Were you in the military? Did it hurt? How long did recovery take? Was it difficult learning to walk again?" One employee apologized before asking, another apologized afterwards. One admitted, "I spent the weekend reading about prosthetics." Another confessed, "I watched videos online because I wanted to understand." Every question was sincere. Every question was kind. Every question required Mr. Hastings to reopen a chapter he had finally learned not to introduce himself with. Then something unexpected happened. People stopped listening only to his words. They began observing his movements. Someone watched him climb the stairs. Someone noticed how long he stood during presentations. Someone quietly asked another, "Do you think he's in pain?" One employee began insisting on walking him to his car. Another started carrying every heavy box before he had a chance to reach it. A third avoided assigning him work requiring travel, without ever asking if he wanted the assignment. The strange part was that no one had become less kind. If anything, they had become more thoughtful, more attentive, more compassionate. Yet, Mr. Hastings felt less seen, because somewhere, without anyone intending to, they had stopped meeting Mr. Hastings. Instead, they were meeting the man with one leg. One afternoon, he closed his office door, sat quietly, looked around the room, then smiled to himself. Not because anything was funny, because a single thought had quietly arrived. For 6 months, my leg never managed this department. My leg never hired an employee. My leg never resolved a disagreement. My leg never earned their trust. I did. He leaned back, looked out the window, and wondered, who should arrive tomorrow morning? The same Mr. Hastings who walked in this building 6 months ago, or the new Mr. Hastings everyone else seemed to be expecting? He hadn't changed, not one bit. But everyone around him had spent the weekend rewriting his script. And without realizing it, they had begun performing their new roles. Mr. Hastings never held a meeting. He never stood before his staff and said, "I'd like to clarify who I am." There was nothing to clarify. He knew who he was. The question was, did everyone else? Perhaps you've met Mr. Hastings before. Perhaps you've been Mr. Hastings. Or perhaps, without ever intending to, you've been one of the coworkers. My wonderful listeners, here is a poem I titled Supporting Cast. The effort of building my stage and standing up on it was quietly dismantled by my supporting cast. "We see you as the star," they proudly announced. "We have only made a few edits to your script. You now have more lines, more scenes, a better story. We'll build it together. You don't have to carry the stage of your life alone. We're stronger than scaffolding. We'll support you." Then they smile. "Allow us to be you, while you practice being the person we now imagine." The audience applauded. I searched the stage for the script I had been living before. They rewrote me. There is something fascinating about being human. We rarely meet people where they are. We meet them where our understanding has placed them. Sometimes that place is accurate. Sometimes it is built upon a single piece of information that quietly grows large enough to eclipse everything else. One scar, one diagnosis, one mistake, one success, one title, one divorce, one promotion, one missing leg. One visible truth becomes the entire story. Yet none of us are one chapter. My wonderful listeners, before we leave today, I'd like to give you something. Permission. Not mine, yours. The permission to be the person standing in this moment. You are not required to remain the child your father remembers, or the teenager your classmates still talk about, or the college student who thought they understood the world. You are not required to continue being the husband you were yesterday, or the wife you were 10 years ago, or the employee who walked into work last Monday. Those people mattered. They helped shape you. They still live inside your memories, and they still live inside the memories of others. But memories are not ownership. No one owns today's version of you. Maybe today you feel like the little girl in the yellow dress skipping down the road. Then skip! Skip, Grandma, skip! Maybe tomorrow you are quiet. Be quiet. Maybe today you're grieving, then grieve. Maybe today you've finally found joy after years searching. Laugh loudly. Not because someone expects you to, because today joy arrived. You are not one version of yourself. You are every version that has ever existed. Some still live within you. Some have quietly said goodbye. Some are waiting for permission to return. Perhaps the greatest performance of being human is believing we owe everyone the version of ourselves they remember, instead of the person standing before them today. So, this week, before you rewrite someone else's story, pause. Before you change how you treat them, pause. Before kindness becomes assumption, pause. Ask them. Meet them where they are, not where your imagination has placed them. And if today you discover that you have been performing someone else's version of yourself, perhaps today is a good day to stop rehearsing. This has been Whoyellingnow! I am Olga Foreign. Until next Wednesday, remember, kindness can kill. It can kill the opportunity for someone to simply continue being themselves. Don't ask who people remember. Ask instead, who is standing before me right now? Tell a friend to listen and subscribe to Whoyellingnow. Goodbye.